Picture this. It's November 2nd, 1988. One person, one program, one mistake. And by morning, 10% of the entire internet would be unreachable. The internet in 1988, though nothing like the one we know today, is a fragile network of university computers, government research machines, and academic systems. Around 60,000 hosts are connected worldwide. No World Wide Web, no Google, no social media, no apps. Just researchers quietly sharing data across networks like ARPANET and NSFNet, the two US backbone networks that laid the foundation of today's internet. And security? Almost an afterthought, not because people did not care, because the internet was built on a different assumption entirely: trust. Machines trusted other machines, universities trusted other universities, users trusted that people on the network were driven by research, not destruction. Nobody expected that trust itself could become the greatest weakness. At around 8:30 p.m., a 23-year-old Cornell graduate student named Robert Tapan Morris sits down at a terminal at MIT. Not because MIT was special, but because it gave him a separate point of entry. By routing the worm through a MIT computer, Morris attempted to hide its true origin and distance the program from Cornell, where he was a PhD student. For weeks, Morris had been working on a program with a simple goal: measure the size of the internet. At the time, nobody truly knew how large this growing network had become. So he built a worm, a program designed to move from computer to computer on its own. Unlike a virus, which depends on someone to copy or activate it, a worm can find new systems, replicate itself, and continue spreading automatically. The intention was not to destroy anything, but Morris had created a self replicating program for a network that had never faced anything like it before. And once it escaped into the wild, it began spreading in ways he never anticipated. The worm had four ways into a machine. The first was through a sendmail, the program responsible for routing email between systems. At the time, sendmail had a debugging feature that allowed remote command execution, useful during development, but never meant to be publicly exposed. The worm found it. The second method targeted a vulnerability in the finger daemon, a simple tool that let users look up account information on remote machines. The problem was a buffer overflow, a classic software mistake where you feed a program far more data than it can safely handle, overwriting memory and influencing what the system executes next. The third method exploited trust relationship. Many university machines use services like RSH, which let one machine access another without asking for a password each time. Convenient. But it meant that one compromised trusted machine could open the door to several others. The fourth method was simplest of all: password guessing. The worm carried a dictionary of common passwords and tried combinations based on usernames, account names, and predictable choices. Nothing futuristic, just embarrassingly effective. But the most consequential mistake was not any of those four entry points. It was the worm's defense mechanism. Morris knew administrators might discover the worm and remove it, so he designed to check whether a machine was already infected before creating a new copy. If a copy was already running, the worm would normally stop. But Morris worried someone could fake that response, pretend to be infected to trick the worm into leaving. So he added a probability check. Even if a machine claimed it was already infected, there was still a 1 in 7 chance the worm would ignore that and create another copy anyway. The idea was to make the worm harder to block. The result was catastrophic because that probability applied repeatedly. Machines did not get reinfected once or twice, they accumulated multiple copies of the worm process. CPU usage spiked, memory filled up, systems slowed to a crawl, then stopped responding entirely. Email servers stalled, research job died mid run. Machines that had been humming quietly for months simply froze. Within about 24 hours, roughly 6,000 machines were affected, around 10% of the entire connected internet at the time. The worm was not destroying files, it was consuming resources, and that was enough. The response was chaotic but also unexpectedly heroic. Administrators across the country started calling each other. comparing notes by phone and fax. There was no centralized emergency cybersecurity network, no modern incident response playbook. Researchers at MIT, Berkeley, Broad, and other universities worked through the night, reverse engineering the worm in real time, identifying every vulnerability it used, and distributing patches manually across a network that was already struggling. Within roughly 36 hours, the community had largely figured out what the worm was, how it worked, and how to stop it. That frantic, improvised, all hands effort became the foundation of modern incident response. Now, here's the part most people never hear about. The financial damage estimates varied widely, from hundreds of thousands of dollars to several million when counting lost productivity, downtime, and recovery cost. But the dollar figure almost did not matter. What mattered was the realization that the internet had a fundamental security problem. The network had been designed for cooperation. Now everyone had seen what happened when that cooperation was abused. A single program created by one person had taken down 10% of a global network, and nobody, not a single institution, had a plan for what to do next. The legal consequences were just as significant. Morris was identified soon after and indicted in 1989 under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. In 1990, he became the first person ever convicted under it, the first felony cybercrime conviction in US history. The case set an important legal precedent. Creating and releasing code that illegally accesses computer systems and causes disruption can lead to criminal charges, even if the creator claims they did not intend damage that followed. Morris had maintained the worm was meant to gauge the size of the internet, not to cause harm. But the law did not require proof of malicious intent, only that he had accessed computers without authorization and caused harm in the process. His sentence reflected that distinction: 3 years of probation, 400 hours of community service, and a fine of about 10,000 USD. No prison time, but the conviction itself became the lasting legacy, a precedent that still echoes through cybersecurity law today. And the institutions took notice. Within months, DARPA supported creating CERT, the world's first coordinated cybersecurity response team. Think about that. One night in 1988 directly seeded the global security infrastructure, protecting networks right now as you watch this video. For Morris himself, the story got more complicated. He went on to co-found ViaWeb with Paul Graham, a company that created software for running online stores and was acquired by Yahoo in 1998 for nearly 50 million USD, becoming Yahoo Store. He later became a tenured professor at MIT, the same institution whose terminal he had used to launch the worm. History has a strange sense of irony. The Morris worm did not invent cybersecurity. It did not create firewalls, antivirus softwares, or ethical hacking, but it accelerated all of them. It changed how developers thought about secure code. It changed how administrators thought about trust. It started conversations about disclosure and responsibility that we are still having today. One graduate student, one night, one flawed probability check in a piece of code, and thousands of machines went offline. That lesson from 1988 is even more relevant now because the internet no longer just connects research computers. It runs our business, our phones, our infrastructure, and our lives. So the next time your device prompts you to install an update or enable two-factor authentication, remember the night a curious experiment accidentally taught the internet its first major lesson in security. A connected world is powerful, but without security, that same connection becomes its greatest weakness. If this kind of story is your thing, the moments that quietly shape the world you live in, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Drop a comment below. Thank you.